Hello, LineoutCoach Gavin Hickie here. In this video, I want to discuss the key components to a functioning lineout. I believe there are 8 of them. I'll run through them in a moment. But without these functioning components, then all your plans, dreams, hopes and ambitions of playing certain lineouts in certain areas of the pitch very much fall by the wayside. So what are the key components? Key components are the call, the race, the jump, the lift, timing, the throw, the catch, and the ball transfer. As in, what are we going to do with the ball? How do we deliver it? So, quickly looking at each component on its own, we'll start with the call. This is such a fundamentally important part of the lineout that without the correct call, nothing else matters. So what is a correct call? Well, we know what we want to do in certain areas of the pitch in a perfect world. So the call is obviously going to keep that in mind, but it also has to take into account what the defense is showing us, what picture they're showing us, where do they intend to defend. The call has to be made by somebody who is knowledgeable about lineouts, who understands what we're trying to do, and understands where the next play is going to be for the team. The chain of command in terms of calling lineouts should really come from the team's playmaker, probably the 10, down to the 9, and they'll tell the forward what kind of ball the backs want on the next phase. Then the lineout caller calls the lineout based on the criteria mentioned above. The second component is the race. Once a call has been established, the race can refer to a number of things. The whole lineout really is a race, but the race could be strictly straight into the air from the jumper, or the race could be on the ground first by the jumper plus his lifters. The race into space, and that encompasses on the ground and in the air. And if we're calling the lineouts, we want to make sure that we're winning that race. The next component to a successful functioning lineout is the jump itself. Too often than not, particularly domestically here, certainly at collegiate level, when guys aren't confident in their jumping, don't feel they've been coached into their jumping, a lot of the time they'll get into a place in the lineout and then simply expect to be lifted. We see this a lot. A great explanation for the type of jump we're looking for came from Tom Wood, who said, really the jumper wants to jump to the maximum of his ability, as if you're trying to jump on a wall that's just out of reach, and you're really going for it with a full outstretched jump, leaping into the air, at which time the lift is going to kick in. The next component is the lift, and it's the lifter's job to get the jumper as high as he can in the air to try to claim possession, and then also to bring him back down to earth safely. Ideally, we want the front lifter lifting the jumper just above his kneecaps, and we want the back lifter lifting just underneath the backside, creating a bit of a cradle with his hands, and a very, very strong explosive lift to get that jumper as high as he can in the air. Ideally, both lifters are chest to chest, creating a nice tight A-frame with the jumper up in the air. The next component is timing, which again is kind of all encompassing. Timing refers to everything throughout the lineout. But the first part, to get into position, the timing of that, and then to get into the air, the timing of that amongst the jumper and the two lifters is extremely important. And then, allied to that, obviously, is the timing of the hooker's throw. The next component I could talk about all day, having played hooker, and that is the throw. A vital piece to our lineout puzzle. We want our hooker to be able to consistently hit anywhere in the lineout, and even beyond the 15-meter line if possible, because that brings into play a whole new set of options. But the biggest issue that most hookers tend to face is timing. Really the only line out that a hooker can wait until a jumper is fully in the air is the front ball, is the two ball going forward, because that jumper's whole aim is to get in front of his opposite man And because of the close proximity, the hooker can wait. Of every other line out, we need that hooker releasing the ball early based on the trigger. And the trigger could be a jumper getting into position based by his movements, a lifter getting into position based by his movements, or it could be the hooker's throw. And while the hooker's throw as the trigger to a line out piles a little more pressure on the hooker, it's probably the most difficult line out to defend. I have a very specific checklist that I run through when I work with hookers. Limits of movement to a large extent, but first and foremost, it builds up their confidence in their throwing, backed up by their physical ability to throw the full range of lineouts. But that is fairly in-depth and a conversation for another time. The penultimate component is the catch, which is relatively self-explanatory. Just focus on the aggressive nature of the catch. You're really trying to attack that ball. Once you're at maximum extension, you're catching with the fingertips and your fingers as opposed to your hands. You don't want that ball slapping off your hand. And the most important part of post-catch is getting that ball as quickly and as aggressively away from the opposition as possible. So once the jumper goes up, he catches a ball. He wants to make sure that he moves that ball away from his opponents, back towards his own side straight away. And the final component to a functioning lineout is what I call the ball transfer or delivery. What are we going to do with the ball next, and how are we going to deliver that ball based on what we're going to do? So, are we going to go off the top? If so, let's have a nice, purposeful delivery off the top. We look before we give, straight down to the receiver. We don't want to just throw one arm up, slap the ball back, and we think we've done our job. There has to be a lot of purpose in what we're doing. We could be trying to tie in the opposition's back row defense, so we want to down and give, and we want to make sure that we deliver the ball in a manner where we're not being pulled straight back, we're not losing possession of the ball, but that ball is safely being transferred again to the receiver. Or we could be setting up a maul or a peel, in which case, once we come down, we hit the ground, how are we presenting the ball for our teammates to set up a maul or a peel? Thanks a lot for watching. These have been the 8 key components to a functioning lineout. I'm loving all the conversations on Facebook, all the chat on social media. I'm planning on delivering a series of lineout videos. So if you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, issues, please do not hesitate to let me know. And again, thank you very much for watching. See you later. Lifting just below the bum, the bottom. Ideally, we want the front